should celebrate.
Welcome everybody. It is Alpha Beta Talk number 8. Lucky 8. Well, 8's always been a lucky number for me. It's been a crazy day, I'm not going to lie. The Web3 world is actually fine at the moment. Things are not going, there's no drama going on. There's only maybe drama in my office in terms of cutting holes into my big toe, my daughter having accidents. Life gets in the way, and I think why I even mention this is sometimes we forget, with all the avatars and with all the discussions and debates, that ultimately in a virtual world, we are real people. But when we can actually create real relationships, real trust, real connections in a virtual world, well, that's something else completely. Now, when we look at AI, what we're seeing, and I'm starting to see it happening in an increasing rate, that the worlds of Web3 and AI are coming together quite dramatically. In fact, if I may quote myself, which I know is the first sign on the road to purgatory and narcissism hell, what the QR code was to March of 2020 and COVID, we're actually seeing Web3 becoming to AI. When we think about governance, when we think about authentication, when we think about authenticating authenticity, it all seems to be coming together rather nicely. And sometimes when you are looking for a use case, you just have to kind of be patient and wait for that use case to kind of fall into your lap. But you're not here to watch me or listen to me. You're here to be able to listen to the incredible, amazing Jess Clifton. And so I will try and be as short and sweet as I can, just to remind you that every one of our Alpha Talk speakers or Alpha Beta speakers, and there are 67 of them, divided equally between male and female, or those that identify as such, will also be members. So if you are a speaker, you are a member, and we hope that they will stick around and share their wealth, their knowledge, their wisdom with us. So not only Alexandra Damsko has taught me more about what the real role and value and use of crypto is, but so many other things associated with Web3. And then Rishad Tabakawala, my role model, my mentor, the wind beneath my wings, he in fact took me down this whole authenticating authenticity rabbit hole. And let me tell you, I'm diving headfirst and loving every single second of it. A couple of other things to mention as we roll into Alpha Collective in September and beyond is we will be introducing 12 masterminds, 12 alpha minds, and each one will always be geared on the future of. The first one will be the future of creativity, the future of AI, the future of retail, the future of diversity, the future of brands. We'll always start off with a resolve, which is there is or there is not a role for Web3 in the future of ... And if in fact there is one, we will create a playbook. We will create a roadmap. We will create guardrails and guidelines and use cases and take that back to all of the decision makers amongst Fortune 500, Global 2000 and beyond. We're also introducing something called Alpha Tank, where we bring together avatars and pandas and bunnies and puppies and aliens together with human beings with a panel of mixed humans and avatars. But in all earnest and in all sincerity, the goal is to give 52 sellers, 52 publishers, 52 technology companies, 52 agencies, 52 companies that are actually building the blockchain or building the building blocks of the Web3 marketing and brand blockchain. And so we will give them a platform, no more chastising people for shilling, but in fact, what we're going to be doing is encouraging them, New York Tech Meetup style, to demo their value proposition, give them feedback, and who knows, maybe even give them some of our dollars. Also, a quick heads up, next week, and you can see multiple alpha signs, which is someone's going to get fired here. I'm kidding. I'm the producer as well as the host. There you go. We're back to one. But Chiron is going to be in the house. And I love the topic of his presentation, finding Web3's capture moment. I don't know exactly what he means by it, but I think I know exactly what he means by it. There's going to be that moment of truth, whether it is the QR code use case or, in this case, a capture moment, a clean, I'm imagining, use case that just fits, that just works, that scales just magnificently, succinctly, seamlessly, and creates maybe that tipping point moment. And if you just follow me on Twitter or follow Alpha Collective, you will be able to register for his Alpha Beta talk. But in fact, you know what? I tell you what, it is, instead of going further, I am just going to focus on our next speaker, Jess Clifton. I want to also let you know, if you didn't know already, about Jess's incredible background and her accomplishments. She is an experienced executive marketing and digital leader who successfully navigates the complexity of modern marketing, brings order to chaos instead of the other way around, which is 99% of other people, and builds brands through culture and experiences. Her expertise spans across metric-focused performance and digital marketing, creative brand building, experiential and leading-edge innovation, with a successful track record creating innovative custom experiences and measured profit through a bias towards action, organizational cohesion, and developing diverse, high-performing teams. In 2021, Jess sold her agency, Low Earth Orbit, to Media Monks and has been serving as their head of brand advisory since that time. Jess Clifton, it is good to see you. I prefer seeing you not in the metaverse, but in South by Southwest. But in the absence of that, welcome to our Alpha Beta Talks.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And it was so fun hanging out with you at South by Southwest this year. I don't know if you're ever going to do it again, but I had a really good time.
I'll do it as long as the photographs stay destroyed. I will be definitely back
totally
next year. In fact, I've just applied to Mentor again. I love going back to Mentor. Jess, I am going to hand it over to you, but the first question I'm going to ask you, in fact, when we're done or when you're done, is, when I read your background, I start to smile, because what I see is marketing, what I see is media, what I see is advertising, what I see is brands, branding, brand building. What I see is the world of Fortune 500, Global 2000 companies that have created brands that we love, that we buy, that we follow, that we subscribe to.
Yep.
Sometimes we even tattoo on our bodies. And yet there is a chasm and a bridge that needs to be built between that world and the world of chaos, the world of the wild, wild west, the world of all of these emerging technologies, innovations, including, but not limited to, AI. And that's why the most important question to ask is, how are we going to onboard the next $1 billion? How on earth are we going to mainstream this and be able to position this to the people that hold the purse strings without necessarily diluting it or dumbing it down in the process? So keep that, if you're watching, at the back of your minds, because this is the road we're on, and we could not be in better hands than with Jess Clifton. So I am going to disappear, and I will see you as soon as you're done.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Really excited to be here today to talk about AI. Obviously, if you've been following Media Monks at all, or just the general news cycle around digital and innovation and advertising, AI is a very hot topic. And I think for a lot of people, it still feels like it's a little bit far away, but it's truly not. And, when we were talking about the preparation for this presentation, and JJ was talking about like helping to understand how we onboard the next $1 billion into Web3, the reality is, Web3 might just be a component of a much bigger picture in the way that we get comfortable with the internet and the way that we start to apply really smart applications so that we can bring more people in and make them feel comfortable. So excited to talk about this today. Again, my name is Jess Clifton. I am head of brand and marketing advisory at Media Monks. This is my email. I welcome any sort of outreach, questions, follow up after this presentation. Always love talking about AI. And if you're interested in pursuing or exploring how your organization might be able to implement AI to create significant cost efficiency, please reach out. So I collectively, the digital innovators around the world, believe that AI is the biggest invention of our lifetime. And not only is it changing the economics of my world, which is squarely kind of around advertising and marketing, it's really changing the economics of everything. And this milestone has really opened up new opportunities for people to look beyond the derivatives of what came before and explore what comes next, which is so exciting. But, as an industry, we tend to often talk to ourselves about the future and how we prepare for what's coming or what's in the pipeline, or how we organize our budget for next year, thinking that we might be exploring X, Y, and Z potential technology. But at Media Monks, we very much believe in the now, things that are happening now. How do we become a part of culture now? How do we elevate the brand story now? How do we increase shareholder value now? Because it's not about down the road and the future of speculating possibilities. It's really about today. And so that's why I'm excited to really be talking about AI, because we are using it now and today, and we're helping brands really build it forward. And the potential of what AI can do, not only from a marketing and brand perspective, but just for the world outright, is really exciting. Of course, if you aren't familiar with AI, or you think it's maybe a little bit of a future focused technology, just think about the way that you behave today. You log on in the morning to your Instagram page or your Facebook feed. Those are coordinated algorithms that use AI on the back end to deliver you a very curated experience. Search, obviously, you start typing in a search and it predicts what you're going to ask it. That is driven by AI, we call weak AI. Hey Google, hey Alexa, hey Siri, any of those ultimately is AI. The Waze application to get around traffic, your daily playlist that's smart and changing every day on Spotify, your movie recommendations on your AMC app. And then, of course, something that we're all gotten very familiar with over the last couple of years is just bots and chatbots. Like, how are you engaging with brands when there's not a customer service agent available? These things are getting smarter, but they're still kind of, I would say, pretty infantile. Of course, businesses are using AI every day in really smart and sophisticated ways, from manufacturing and robotics to supply chain, healthcare diagnosis, which is really exciting, taking these really smart algorithms and diagnosing patients more effectively and efficiently than doctors can. So that's really a powerful, exciting opportunity that I will continue to watch just as a human of the world. Connecting small businesses, autonomous transport, retail, e-commerce, these Amazon new stores that you can kind of go into and pick out your stuff and just set it down on the counter and then walk right out, build to your Amazon account. That's super cool. And then, of course, where brands are most concerned is around security, fraud protection, legal compliance, et cetera. AI is really making headway in those fields. And then, of course, my world, we've been using AI every day since the inception. This is largely around kind of like data, performance marketing, and now it's become a little bit more advanced around content optimization, which is really exciting. So the way that we're thinking about, AI now is, how do we kind of build these really smart business intelligence tools that help us understand where audiences are, how they're consuming content, how they're buying, and then building attribution models using that same technology, and then creating assets at scale, less investment than traditional production, to help us really optimize and accelerate the performance of content and assets. And then DCO, which is this idea of dynamic creative optimization. So if target one doesn't click on that ad the first time, we change it, change the colors, change the font, change the call to action, and keep experimenting to explore kind of the most significant impact pieces of content, which ultimately help brands drive significant revenue in a far more efficient and faster rate. So this is something, obviously as performance marketers, we've been doing for a long time, but where it's getting really exciting is around kind of the creative side and the creator side, specific to assets at scale. And I'll talk a little bit more about some examples of how we're evolving this. I also just wanted to note that, I think I mentioned, AI is accelerating and appending the economics of everything. It's not brand new. Obviously, in 1956, IBM kind of unveiled the first demonstration of AI, and it significantly impacted their stock price. People were excited about it even back then. Today, AI is really shaping some of the most valuable brands, most of whom we work with, I guess actually all of whom we work with, seeing kind of the investment and the energy around AI and how they make their systems smarter and more intelligent. A lot of that obviously being around data and control of data and, management of data and exposure of data. But really, AI is kind of a core tenant. We're seeing big jobs open up at these really big companies, paying in the tune of like $900,000 a year to $1 million a year for these AI experts to come in and really refine the way that these organizations are going to shape the future of AI. And what's most profound and interesting to me is that by 2030, it's predicted that AI will make up 14% of our global GDP, which is $15.7 trillion if you quantify that into money. So there's a significant market opportunity for new businesses, new thinkers, new points of view, new use cases, and so on. And obviously, I think Web3 provides like a really interesting space to innovate around AI. But I also think, the world I live in marketing really provides like an interesting space for us to play with and elevate and accelerate AI. I also would say, 5 years ago at South by Southwest, to the point we were making at the beginning of this talk, everyone was talking about AI, and we definitely called it a hype cycle and said, the technology is certainly there, and it has a long way to go until we can actually really apply it to kind of innovation, production at scale, synthetic production, et cetera. But now I think the way that the technology has evolved, the way we're using it, the way we're thinking about it moving forward and not even thinking about it yet, really proves that it is the next transformation of digital. So when thinking about AI from a marketing perspective, every client in the world wants everything faster, better, cheaper. They want shorter timelines, they want quality work, and they don't want to spend a lot of money on it. And we agree. And that's very much kind of what our business model has been predicated on, being more efficient, being high quality, and being really quick. But the other piece about that AI actually layers on, which is really exciting, is also being first. And that's something that's really valuable to a lot of brands, especially the brands that are shaping the future. Being first for your brand, first for your audience, first to market, first in your industry, first in the world, just first in general is a nice layer that AI can really help bring and accelerate to the table, because it allows us to put our imagination first. We think about the value of first as kind of both bottom line and eyeballs, right? So eye-catching experiences really go beyond the initial impact and create lasting value from your audience and your customers. And so our goal really when we are applying AI to marketing programs is helping clients have the right digital product at the right time, obviously to the right people. So I said I would talk through a couple of examples just in case you're still kind of scratching your head and wondering how AI applications are really going to kind of change the future of the way marketing works, the way the world works, the way design, product innovation works, and so on. So I want to show you what AI allows us to do, what we've always imagined, and demonstrate a couple really relevant experiences that create lasting impressions. So first of all, the most practical and interesting use of AI for me as a marketer talking to these big Fortune 500 clients every day is production. So we can really elevate the quality and amplify the scale of creative content through something we call synthetic production. And what that is a setup and an infrastructure that enables us to start with a couple of different types of shoots like you would traditionally, and then plugging it into a tool that helps us elevate and accelerate multiple variations. And that ultimately gives us kind of the opportunity, rather than having a human develop 100 different designs and articulations of 5 to 6 variations of imagery or specific ads, the algorithms can do it, and that saves us a lot of time and energy and saves clients a lot of money. And then what we can do is put that into what I was talking about earlier, which is the dynamic creative optimization, DCO, and help us to kind of understand of these variations, what's going to create the most personalized, responsive, and conversational experience with our customers. And using kind of back-end AI media modeling and media mix modeling, we can continue to serve variations of those ads to drive the greatest impact of advertising, which is really exciting. We're doing this right now for many clients, and the roster keeps growing every day. I can't even keep up with it, but I think it's really worked out very well for some of our bigger clients who are really eager to pilot it from the beginning. And we're continuing to kind of elevate that synthetic production and helping them really achieve significant ROI with lower cost. I mean, the other component of not just like obviously driving consumer engagement and ROI is just like thinking about how you design your products. So if like you're a retail brand or a merchandise oriented brand, like you can kind of bring people together to co-create products, and you can do that in kind of these really cool live streams where like you have influencers and celebrities and creators all coming together to kind of like drop language to change the version of this design. And thanks to AI, this can happen very much real time, right in front of our eyes. This product then can go from this cool digital innovation to being on shelves. And you could even think about kind of minting a version of this into NFTs and giving it to all of the creators. And as the product itself becomes more valuable and makes more money, those NFTs ultimately become more valuable and make more money. So it's a really cool opportunity. I think, we've seen a lot of our more fashion-oriented clients really get into this and engage with consumers, because it's like the next iteration of social media, right? Where we wanted opinions, we wanted that one-on-one relationship. We've always talked about how we better open doors to consumers to make them a part of the journey, a part of innovation, a part of product. And AI is enabling that in this really powerful and obviously extraordinarily beautiful and engaging way. Another point from our gaming community is like just bringing fans closer to their favorite characters by enabling them to interact live. So you can create these cool interactive displays or holograms at events or competitions or conferences, and it allows players to really like chat with renditions of their characters in real time by creating connections to IP like they've never had access to before. I mean, imagine being at Comic-Con and being able to go up to this kiosk and swiping a code and meeting your Call of Duty avatar and being able to talk to that person. And they have all the data on how your game has been performing over the last several months and might have some pithy advice for you. I mean, I think it's just accelerating the innovation and connectivity to data and making these experiences so personal and unique for people that they feel more connected to the brands. Of course, AI, and again, this is something we do in marketing a lot, is just thinking about how we build loyalty and context. And so this is an example we created for Spotify, which is like, how do you connect patterns of listening data with contextual data to reward users with targeted marketing products and experiences? So we created this musical journey that's made deeply personal. And when we pair AI with user data, it really allows brands to create these hyper-personalized experiences to boost loyalty. So if we know that Spotify made me a unique piece of merch and invited me to this VIP event because I've been listening to this mix on repeat that has my favorite musicians or my favorite talent, then ultimately, I feel more connected to Spotify because I feel like they know me. They're offering me something that they aren't offering to anyone else because it's based so specifically on my preferences and my points of view in the world. And then adaptive commerce is something that's really interesting to me as a maybe closeted, very aggressive online shopper. Don't tell my husband. Actually, he already knows, so it's okay. But you look at these products online and you look at the different views. And sometimes I think like, wow, this photo shoot for this one shirt must have taken hours because they have like 17 different images to just depict the way this shirt is sitting on this model. And it's little things like that I tend to notice in the world. And what's really interesting about AI-powered adaptive commerce is we can basically take these shoots and evolve them and put this shoe on the placement of a dozen different models of different races, ethnicities, cultures, and different places using AI, which significantly cuts down on production budgets, of course, And we can serve those pieces of content in a hyper relevant way via paid media. So if we want to target users of this product who live in California, then we can kind of create this whole adaptive commerce experience with the content that we already have and say, apply this shoe to 5 women on the beach in Venice and having a good time. And immediately we can create this content, which is so powerful and so interesting to me. Again, this is really kind of saying like, this synthetic production really reduces the cost of production, and it really does increase the engagement and conversion. And we're doing this with Nike right now, and it's been really exciting. So I would say, like, on the marketing side, obviously I could go through probably 25 more examples. The possibilities are really endless to invent and improve the customer experience through AI. I mean, you think about generative campaign communications, reimagine brand content, hyper-personalized customer experiences, new communication channels. How do you tell your story? Like, how do you think about using AI and PR? That's a really fascinating topic that we're talking about a lot lately. These really bespoke loyalty programs, so consumers feel intimately connected with you in a way that they never have before. And of course, they know you're using their data, which is why kind of Web3 creates a more interesting environment, because it feels a little bit more decentralized. But in this case, leveraging the data that these big brands have to create these really special and unique experiences that feel totally personal is really where I believe the future of marketing is going. And that's what's really exciting. But I know we wanted to talk a little bit more about how AI really informs Web3, of course. And so what's interesting is, obviously, the world of marketing is built and owned and driven by creativity. And in the last 10, 20 years, we've seen more creators rise up than ever before. And that's really cool. We saw, obviously democratization of creativity. Anybody could be a creative in the Web2 world, and they could make anything. They could make a blog, they could create content, they could become a YouTuber. And that is still very much a possibility and an open door for everyone, which is really exciting. I think what's interesting about AI for creators in Web3 is that it gives control back to the creators. And this is something, as we were thinking about it, I, immediately thought about how many creators are out there creating content on TikTok. They don't own any of that content, or have 500 million followers on Instagram. And any minute that account could get hacked and they might not be able to get it back. And that's scary for creators who have invested their livelihood and their time and their energy creating content, only to put it on a platform where they don't control the data and they really don't control exactly how that platform is run on the back end. And they have a really hard time monetizing via that platform. So what's cool about AI is, for Web3, is, we take the big tech out of it, which have been using centralized AI models to extract value from users and gain insights for years. And we give personal AI to creators that gives them complete control of their data to unlock more monetary value for the content they create, to build subscriptions, to kind of create their own environment, their own publishing platform. And every AI model for creators is really trained on the creator's personal knowledge, passions, and experience. And that enables them to build really interesting, long-term, sustainable businesses on their own outside of some of the bigger brands. So yes, brands will always continue to create content. They'll continue to leverage data. But now creators have a little bit more control of becoming and behaving a little bit more like those brands in the Web3 world. Also interesting is just the application of machine learning, of course. Like, AI incorporating machine learning to organize DAOs is very interesting. Like, we do a lot of work with Decentraland and thinking about how if we were sitting on the other side, or we were a token holder there, like what if they incorporated a machine learning technique that helped them to identify the most lucrative brands to engage with, to predict their potential impact, and then prioritize them for consideration by the members and proactively go out and sell. So that's where it's interesting to me, is like, I think AI can really maximize productivity, efficiency, and support kind of more rapid consensus building for rapidly growing and highly decentralized organizations within Web3, right? Because there's really no CEO, but AI can be the CEO because it can use data to tell you, if we make this decision, it has a very probable high impact outcome. So in closing, because we like to keep this short and sweet, I think just AI at a very high level, like I talked about today, allows us to create these experiences we've always imagined. And it's going to be really exciting to see the way it evolves over the next, year. I would say, like I mentioned earlier, it's really about the now. And so watching how production is changing, how data is changing, how DCO is evolving, how AI algorithms are just getting smarter, how more and more companies are entering this space. It's going to be a really wild ride. But again, it's not a hype cycle. It is a digital transformation and innovation. And I encourage everyone to just read up a little bit more and get a little bit more educated about it, because it's going to be the future. And that is a wrap for me on my presentation.
I was enjoying actually being a guest. I was myself and the 10,000 people watching right now. I was sitting back, I was listening, I was learning, and I was thinking to myself, the people that are here watching right now are just getting gold, platinum, diamonds, rubies, and the people that are not are missing out, because this was a little bit of a masterclass, Jess Clifton. Thank you. It was
You're
amazing.
welcome.
I'm not
Oh,
just saying
good.
that.
Thank you.
You know me, I don't just say things.
You
I mean, I
don't.
say
You
things,
don't.
but I don't just say things.
Well, you say a lot of things, but you mean all of them.
And I don't just say things. I say, but I don't just say. I really loved it. And there were so many directions that I actually could have taken it. I'm going to just jump on a few things that caught my eye. First of all, I've never actually heard of the concept. I've never heard of synthetic production. By the way, we're going to switch to our fireside chat, which makes it a little bit warm. So there we go. Can you feel the warmth at
Oh,
the
yes.
moment?
So warm.
Can you feel
I'm
the
just
warmth?
loving it in this 95-degree LA weather. Thank you for that.
Well, in the metaverse, it can be what I can make it cooler for you if you like.
Can you make it cooler for me? That would be great.
I can do it. Synthetic production. Where does the term come from? What does it mean? It's different, and I've never heard it before until just now.
Yeah, so that's a term that we actually concepted here at Media Monks, to really help kind of tell the story about how we are building content, right? So synthetic production is essentially a traditional production that requires less skill, less investment, less reviews to get a certain amount of must-have content that then goes into a programmable engine that creates 100, 3,000, a million different assets based on the input that we provide into that production. So we could be on a production for, I'll just think about a client that we have. Maybe it's Disney, and they want to get, these 10 messages about their theme park. We can go and shoot 5 pieces of content, and then we can build in all of the messaging behind it into the AI algorithm, and it will produce 100 pieces of content that tell that story in different ways.
And it also goes back to the example with the shirt, where you're actually seeing all these different scenarios now. It's not just about what was digital marketing and performance marketing 101, which is let's create 17,000 different versions according to the IAB, boxes and badges and skyscrapers and verticals.
Exactly.
But now it's like, well, we actually have all of these. Actually, if you think about diversity from a diversity DI standpoint, we can be as inclusive as we've ever wanted to be, and then some.
Yes.
And that's also an interesting use case too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when we were just talking about some of the work we were doing with Nike and talking about how we target audiences, I mean, Nike is a great example of a brand that has so many different audiences, from kids to retirees, and we don't want to alienate any of them. And so this approach really gives us the opportunity to create content that looks like the people that we're selling to, and isn't just this universal representation that advertising has always tried to kind of like nail somewhere in the middle, but never really speaks to anyone.
I'm gonna try and spend a degree of a fair amount of time now on this bridge between, or this intersection between Web3 and AI. And I'm sure you've heard of Mila Sophia at the moment, the Instagram AI generated supermodel that is, I think, captured and broken the hearts of hundreds of thousands of men in particular, but I'm sure all different, maybe AI bots and avatars as well. But I think there's something interesting there, because when we talk about developing real relationships in virtual environments, if there is emotion, if there is trust, if there is connection, we're entering a very interesting space and an interesting time. The other day, I had the CMO of Forbes, Seth Matlins, on my show on Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. Now, he was responsible for the original Coca-Cola American Idol deal when he was on the talent side of the equation. So what I did was I actually took ChatGPT and I took his entire bio and I rewrote, or at least the bot rewrote the bio in the voice and tone and snarkiness of Simon Cowell. And then I delivered his bio in Simon Cowell's, well, at least my version of his accent as well. So even if that creates a connection, a rise, a smirk, disdain, humor, whatever the case may be, I think there are interesting things happening where we can get people to care or to take or to actually, kind of give a second look or notice or break through the clutter, which is the very thing that we've been struggling with until now. So maybe it's less about Web3 versus AI or AI versus Web3, and it's about this idea of two willing bedfellows. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of where do you see all of this fitting in? Are they in fact willing, unwilling bedfellows? Will Web3 fit into AI? Will AI fit into Web3? How do you see it all shaping up?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the opportunities for Web3 is certainly to onboard the next brand dollars, right? And your question about that was interesting to me. And having spent many years working in digital, but largely on the PR side when I was at Edelman, it really comes down to trust, and then that drives down to kind of this slippery slope of like legal compliance, ethics, et cetera. And so what I think is interesting and why I think AI is the future of Web3 is I think as big brands, as people, as society starts to adopt and embrace AI, and as AI starts to inform, support, protect, organize Web3, then they'll naturally fuse together to be Web3 will be more broadly adopted because AI will be understood and a part of that system and infrastructure and organization.
You just got the air horn for that. That was like poetry. That was like something ChatGPT would have written, except there's no
Right?
way, except it's impossible unless you were that avatar or that bot right now. But that was magnificent, eloquent, and I think as I'm starting to have all of these conversations, and I'll go back to Alpha Collector for a second, and I think to myself, can you imagine 67 of these conversations every single week? But we are building up a bank, we are building up a muscle of intelligence to
Mhm.
understand this emerging world. So going back to Rashad and authentication, and now you talking about trust, these are all core elements in relationships. And ultimately, I mean, what is the one thing that makes a brand a brand? It isn't, it's consistency, but it's also trust. So I think you filled in another piece of this puzzle, and we're building, I think, what looks like a beautiful tapestry.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's really exciting.
So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I left out as I was taking feverish notes. Um, I'll say one more thing, and then I want to give you the last word, which is it's also interesting to me that where Web3 and AI start to come together, converge, integrate into one another very seamlessly is something near and dear to my heart, which is CRM, loyalty,
Mhm.
retention. I know someone who once wrote a book called Flip the Funnel. The thing about it that's so interesting, Jess, is that it's still not quite in the hearts and minds of the C-suite and from a budget standpoint. Do you think maybe that we might actually see a little bit of a tipping point? Web3 and AI produce this 1+1 = 3 that allows us to see massive budget shifts as opposed to contractions from acquisition to retention?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think the C-suite is certainly focused on CRM, and they're starting to focus on personalization and starting to see the potential of DCO. And now they're starting to recognize how AI can play a role in creating efficiencies, which for the C-suite, all that means is saving them a lot of money, and ultimately a lot of time to kind of bring products to market, to tell stories, to manage crises even. I think, like I said before, helping to educate the C-suite on the power of technology and the way that it's going to fuel and support the growth of the brands is the only way that you're ever going to get them involved and engaged. And so, like anything, it just comes down to a really good story that we tell to them, and provide them with test and learn opportunities, innovation opportunities. There's always budget for that, because what they don't want is to be left behind, which is why we have that whole kind of cheaper, faster, better first model, because nobody wants to be last, of course. Sometimes it's scary to be first, but there's not really a choice at this point whether or not you opt in or not.
They also don't want to be written out of the story. They want to make sure that they are still a character, an avatar, maybe even part of the starring cast of the story. You're making me think about two things. I said one thing, but now there are two things. Something that lands very differently for me. And we've known each other for a long time, and we go back a long time. But the thing that's always been hard was being first. As an executive once said to me, Joe, there are two types of people in the world. There are pioneers and settlers. The pioneers get shot and the settlers take the land. And he was and then he told me that I was a pioneer. I was thanks for nothing. So first mover advantage always in our mind, in our hearts, has made sense. But the reality is no one has wanted to be first. What's changed now, in particular with AI, going back to your presentation, where being first is an absolute imperative?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes long before AI and to just kind of the advent of digital, right? So I think some of the first augmented reality experiences that we created for brands. I was at Goodby Silverstein at the time, and we created the first augmented reality experience for Doritos, where we put a concert on a bag using a QR code. And when people rolled over that bag, they got a concert that was in the palm of their hands. And it took us a long time to sell it through, but we had to find the right client who had the right audience, who had the right courage. I had to find the right word there that was appropriate. The right courage to kind of like lean in and do something like that. And then every brand followed. And so I think, having seen kind of the trajectory of digital and innovation, I think brands are a lot less reticent to invest in things like AI and even Web3 to an extent. But it's really about kind of this story that you tell them. Like, here's a point of view. Here's why you should do it. Here's how we're going to do it. And then I love the pioneer settlers point of view, but I think that the story needs to be, here's how you're going to be a pioneer, but also how you're going to avoid getting shot. And there's a long tail there. It's not just about showing up tomorrow and doing a quick hit activation and then vanishing. It's about showing up, protecting, supporting, continuing to invest, galvanizing community, and supporting this investment to see the fullest extent of what's possible.
I really love that response. Really, really love that response. And I was thinking maybe there's another part of this evolving narrative, which is in the past, you were able to catch up. You were able to watch from the sidelines, be a spectator, be a fast or even a slow follower. But maybe that's shifting now. Maybe you actually have to be in it. You have to be in the mud, in the mire, sometimes even in the quicksand, in order to be able to be in that pack, that chasing pack or that leading pack. Maybe, in fact, being in the chasing pack is not good enough anymore. So I love what you said. Be the pioneer, avoid being shot, as opposed to be the settler and look around. As the old saying goes, there are three types of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happening, and those who turn around and say, what happened? There's one more thing, and we'll go back to, I love the whole culture around Media Monks. I was looking on your Twitter as well. There's something very near and dear to my heart. Whenever someone would ask me, hey, Joe, what's the next big thing? I would say, there is no next big thing, you moron. The next big thing is now. I love the power of now. I love how you've almost flipped all of these myths on their head. People didn't want to be first. Now it's about being first. People are looking about the next big thing. You're again now focusing on now. You spoke about AI. What do you think is Web3's the next big thing is now use case, if anything, or if at all?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think I'm still kind of like watching and wondering, right? I think with some of the challenges that have happened in the crypto space in the last few months, there's just some hesitancy and some questions, not by me, but just kind of culturally. And so I think, what the power of the blockchain can do is endless, and what the creators can bring to the table to kind of build around community is really powerful. And so that's probably an area I would lean in more than anything. And I also think that, if I was a betting person, which I am a little bit, I would say that there's going to be some really interesting DAOs that are coming to fruition that are really political in nature, and probably very liberal, that will galvanize people and create movements and start to drive and address things like climate change and gun control and women's rights. And so I'm excited to see the power of Web3 as it relates to kind of bringing that community together and creating culture, economy, and content in one place, and really owning and monetizing those storylines and those movements.
I think I completely agree with you. And I was trying to work out, as well as our production team works on all of the titles and subtitles, meaning my 10 fingers. Is it in fact the Tao of now, or is it the now of Tao? But it was Drew Austin, who was one of our speakers, who actually spoke about and educated me that the essence of the autonomous in DAOs is not actually about voting. It's about an organization that functions autonomously and automatically. And the only way you can do that is, in fact, wait for it, say it with me, people, AI. So you can see how it all comes full circle. Well,
Yep.
I would hazard to say that this has been a master class, and you have been the master instructor, Jess Clifton. If you want to follow Jess, she is hanging out these days more often on LinkedIn. So check her out, Jessica Clifton, on LinkedIn. Also, just reach out to her. If you aren't convinced already, then you will never be convinced, because I'm convinced. I'm reaching out to her right afterwards. If you're interested in exploring how your company or brand can begin experimenting and implementing AI systems, and she's doing that in her role within Media Monks. I feel if I was a little bit down or down, I'm now feeling unbelievably optimistic, because I see the future. And we see the future materializing, Jess. Khusro Khaled last week, yourself this week, when we actually see, wait a second, there are real brands doing real things in this emerging space. It's not theory, it's not conceptual. It's actually happening right now. And good to see the people that are leading the charge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
You are welcome, and I will see you IRL, but I'll also see you within Alpha Collective, because you are a member. We are going to start a new thing, which is to leave you with a snippet from our previous Alpha Beta Talk speaker. This is Khusro Khaled, who is Managing Director of Deloitte Digital's Web3 and Metaverse practice. And we will leave you with him, Jess. I will see you around the Metaverse.
Absolutely.
Take care, everyone. We debated revolution or evolution, and I think you've evolved and I've revolved, or maybe vice versa. It's a little bit of both, right? It's the thing about change, as you know, right? It happens slowly until it doesn't. Right? Yeah. It takes a while, and then one day you look back. I always use the example of, there was a time when you'd go to a concert, you'd go to a rock concert, and they'd say no flash photography and no videography. Yeah. And if you had a camera or a handy cam or whatever the hell they called it, they'd confiscate it. Exactly. And then can you imagine going to Taylor Swift now and confiscating 85,000 phones? It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's now the norm. And that's the more eyeballs on the concert outside of folks that are there. Right? So imagine the next concert, right? More people show up.
Strategically as well, there really is a method to the madness. I've always said, with respect to Broadway, I do not understand why, when they do their curtain call, and maybe an encore number. They don't just say, all right, everybody, take out your phones now and record, because they know that they're going to share that content. It really can extend, amplify, enhance, and help you grow your brand by embracing technology.